In this video, we will be reviewing a topic from algebra called completing the square. So you should have three things out in front of you right now. You should have your note sheet, you should have something to write with, and you should also have a highlighter. So get those things now and let's begin. When we think of a quadratic, the standard form of a quadratic is ax squared plus bx plus c. It's called a trinomial. There are three terms. One of the terms has an x squared, one of the terms has an x to the first power, and then the third term is just a constant, it's a number. In order to complete the square, the coefficient for x squared must be 1. So what that means is that the number in front of the x squared must be 1. Our a must be 1. The goal of completing the square is to create what we call a perfect square trinomial. A perfect square trinomial has three terms, and what makes it a perfect square trinomial is that it can be factored into the form x plus or minus some number squared. So that's what we're going to be seeing in our examples below. The way that I want you guys to remember completing the square, to remember the process, is half it, square it, add it. So as long as you know what it is, you can complete the square. So what does it refer to? Well, it refers to the b value. So what that means when I reference the b value is the number or the coefficient that's in front of our x term in our expression. So b could be positive, b could be negative. It depends on the sign, obviously, that's in front of the x term. So what we're going to do in examples 1 through 4 is, for each of the following, create a perfect square trinomial, then factor. So number 1, what we have so far is an expression that reads x squared plus 12x. Our goal is going to be to figure out what number is going to be added on that blank that's going to allow this to be a perfect square trinomial. So our process is half it, square it, add it. So first I need to identify the b value, which is my it. So the b value is positive 12. So what I need to do is cut it in half. So half it means divide by 2. 12 divided by 2 is 6. Then I need to square it. So I need to take the number that I just got, which was 6, and square it. 6 squared is 6 times 6, which is 36. And then what I need to do is add it. So I need to take that number that I just got and add it in that blank. Add 36. So what I have just created right here is a perfect square trinomial. If I factor x squared plus 12x plus 36, I can factor it into x plus 6 times x plus 6, which rewritten as a binomial squared is really x plus 6 squared. That's where we're going to stop for this example. What I've just done is I created a perfect square trinomial. That's what I circled over here after we added the 36. And then I factored it. And in factored form, I got x plus 6 squared. So that's the process for completing the square. We half it, square it, add it, and then we need to factor the trinomial that we create. So let's take a look at example 2. X squared minus 2x. We're going to go through the same process of creating a perfect square trinomial and then factoring it. So first thing I need to identify is the b value. The coefficient in front of the x here is a negative 2. So I need to half it, which I'm just going to abbreviate with an h. So I'm going to take the negative 2 and cut it in half. Negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. Then I need to square it. So I need to take the negative 1 that I just got and square it. Any number squared, whether it's a positive number or a negative number, any number squared is always positive. So negative 1 squared is going to be positive 1. And I'm trying to figure out what number goes in this blank up here at the end of the expression. So I just figured out that I need to add a 1. So I halved it, I squared it, and now I added it. And what I've just created here, x squared minus 2x plus 1, is a perfect square trinomial that can get factored as x minus 1 times x minus 1, which rewritten is just x minus 1 squared. So we can stop there for that example because we've completed what we were asked to complete. At this point, what I'd like you to do is pause the video and try number 3 on your own. Try the half it, square it, add it process on your own. And once you finish, restart the video and we'll go over it. So pause now, please. So hopefully at this point you've finished example 3 on your own. Let's go over it and see how you did. First of all, we need to identify our b value, which in this case is positive 24, with the goal being to figure out what number goes in this blank so that this is a perfect square trinomial. So let's go through our process of halving it. So 24 divided by 2 is 12. Squaring it, 12 squared is 12 times 12, which is 144. And then I'm going to take that number and add it in the blank. So the perfect square trinomial that I come up with is x squared plus 24x plus 144. In factored form, that's x plus 12 times x plus 12, which can be simplified as x plus 12 squared. So that is what I get for my answer there for number 3. Number 4 is a little bit different because to figure out what number goes in that blank, I start out by identifying the b value, which is, in this case, it's negative, but it's also an odd number. So this is the first example we're seeing that has an odd b value. It's going to look a little bit different because when I half it, when I take an odd number and cut it in half, 2 doesn't go into an odd number evenly, so we actually have to leave this as a fraction. Then when I go to square it, negative 5 over 2 squared, squaring is just multiplying something times itself, so I'm going to write it out twice. Multiply the numerators. Negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25. Denominators, 2 times 2 is 4. 25 over 4 is what I get when I square it, so that's what I need to add. When I take a look at the perfect square trinomial that I've just created, x squared minus 5x plus 25 fourths, I can factor it into x minus 5 over 2 times x minus 5 over 2, which is x minus 5 over 2 squared. So that's where we can stop with that example. I do want you to be aware that the way that I'm getting this number here and here to go in the parentheses with my x is I'm taking this half it number. So notice in this example, negative 5 over 2 appeared here and here, so I can write it as a binomial squared. Same thing over here, the half it number, the positive 12, is the number that was used when I factored. Same thing in examples 1 and 2, the half it number, which was 6 in example 1, is the plus 6 and the plus 6, that's where that came from. And then in example 2, the half it number was negative 1. That's where I got my minus 1, minus 1. So now that we've gone over 4 examples of completing the square, let's take a look at example 5. In number 5, create a perfect square trinomial for the x terms and the y terms, then factor. So the way I want you to view this is actually kind of as 2 separate problems. The problem dealing with the x's, x squared plus 6x, and a problem dealing with the y's, y squared minus 10y. We're going to complete the square twice, one time for the x's, one time for the y's. So let's start with the x's. I'm actually going to rewrite this as x squared plus 6x and a blank. Bring down the plus sign, y squared minus 10y and a blank. I want to figure out what goes in both of those blanks. They will be 2 different numbers. So let's start by halving the b term. So half of 6 is 3. Then let's square it. 3 squared is 9. And then let's add it. Now that I have figured out the perfect square trinomial for the x's, I can move on to the y's. So my b value is the negative 10. So I need to half it. Half of negative 10 is negative 5. Square it. Negative 5 squared is a positive 25. And because it's positive, I'm always adding the number here. So plus 25. Now I can factor my 2 perfect square trinomials. The x's, which I'll put in red, X squared plus 6x plus 9 is x plus 3 times x plus 3. The plus sign that was here just gets rewritten. It gets carried over. And y squared minus 10y plus 25 can get written as, or factored as, y minus 5 times y minus 5. So if I simplify this, my final answer here is x plus 3 squared, bring down the plus sign that was there in the middle all along, and then y minus 5 squared. And this is my answer. I have completed the square twice, once for the x's, once for the y's, and I now have my final answer. So when you come into class next time, we will be applying this algebra topic to our current geometry unit.